Hi guys, and welcome to the channel. Hillbilly Military Modeling here, and I have a new video for you. And this will be a continuation of our build of the Panzer Kampfwagen IV by Tamiya 1/35 scale. In this video, I'll be painting and chipping. So the first thing to do is to disassemble the model. This is made easier by Tamiya's polycaps in our road wheels and our drive sprockets and our idlers. We'll be painting everything black to start off with. So the first thing I do is take the road wheels, sprockets, and idlers, and I will put them on these tapered dowels to hold them for me. I also have alligator clips to hold various other items, such as these support rollers. And here we are, all set to paint. It's a good idea to take a little bit of rubbing alcohol and go over the flat surfaces of the vehicle. I also take and tape up the axles that these polycaps are going to slide on. So the first thing we're going to do is paint everything black. So what I have here is the Vallejo acrylic black, and I will thin that down to be used in an airbrush with acrylic reducer. This is a water-based reducer. And I'll also be adding a little bit of flow medium, just a few drops. In this case, I think I add, well, you know, it's a hillbilly measurement, so about 6 drops to it. So here what I'm going to show you is on the left is the black paint that I've mixed up to spray the model with. On the right is a brown green that I had already mixed. I added the flow reducer to the black, and after allowing these mixed up paints to set, you can see how the flow reducer really helped the black to flow down off the glass inside the jar, whereas the brown green that I have there is not, it doesn't contain any of the flow improvers. And here we are with the model all painted up in black. Now I've painted the hull and the turret, also the road wheels and the tracks. And this black gives us a uniform surface. It allows us to look at it and see if there's anything that needs to be sanded down, something that we may have missed. So you can give it a real good inspection now. So next up, we're going to do white on black pre-shading. These are the items I use for that. And here you can see that I have painted all these little flat surfaces. This will give lighter tones and darker tones when we put our base color on. Now, for some reason, I always have a problem with white. It wants to splotch and spit and stop up the airbrush. I don't know why. I haven't quite figured out the formula for that yet. Okay, so here I have taken and coiled up a little bitty piece of paper and stuck it in the barrel. That's going to maintain a shadow for us in the barrel after we paint. Here I've masked the headlights to give a little light slit. And so up next we are going to paint it gray. Now the Vallejo Panzer Gray is a really dark color, so I'm going to lighten it up a little bit. The mixtures are going to be about 85% gray and 15% white. And now we've sprayed the model with the gray, and you can see where our pre-shading comes through for us in certain little areas. Sorry about the pictures, they're not all that great for showing that pre-shading detail. So next I'm going to take and paint the muffler with this Model Master Rust Acrylic. And what this is going to do is give me a base to apply my pigments to later on when we get to that part. So now we're going to paint up all the little accessories. The machine guns and the metal on the tools I painted with Tester's flat gunmetal enamel. And then the wire on the tools I used Tester's flat steel enamel to dry brush over that. And the shovel handle, the axe handle, and the jack block, I used Model Master wood acrylic. The wire cutter handles is Tamiya XF64 red brown. Fire extinguisher, I wanted a little bit darker gray to distinguish it, so I used XF63 German gray from Tamiya. And then the cannon swab, I used Tamiya XF49 khaki for that. So next we're going to do the decals. I'm using micro saw here to prep the surface. Right now is a good time to mention that I did, before I started the decals, seal the paint surface with the Model Masters acrylic gloss clear, and that helps eliminate the possibility of or give you a better success rate anyway of your decals not silvering. That seems to work out pretty good, and so I've done it the other way without it and had silvering issues, but usually with Tamiya decals they go down pretty good. So now make sure that you use warm water. That helps soften the glue, and you'll be able to slide the decals much quicker. Cold water takes quite a while, so use warm water. And here I'm using a cotton bud to press down around the details there. There's a vision port on the side of the turret. In retrospect, I think probably the best way to do this to get it lined up would have been to have separated these numbers and put them on one at a time. So take your time with putting these decals on. You need to make sure that you get them straight. Trust me, if it's not straight, that's the first thing people will see. So here on the back of the turret, you can see that the tank number has some wrinkles in the decal. Is it decal or decal? Well, I call it decal. So I'm going to use micro saw. It takes 3 or 4 applications for the wrinkles to all come out, but they do smooth out. Okay, so next I'm going to remove the masks over the headlights, and the decals have had sufficient time to dry completely. And I'm going to go back over all the decals with the Model Master Gloss Clear and seal those in nicely. And this will prep the model for our next phase, which is going to be applying our panel liner. Now I know these slits that I masked off are a little large, but it was the smallest piece of masking that I could cut and still maneuver. So here we are. We're going to take the Tamiya black panel liner, and we're going to go around all the little crevices, the hatches, the latches, the hinges, and I think panel liner is probably one of the most important things you can do to your model to help bring it to a more lifelike representation of the vehicle. it provides us with definition that would normally be lost on the model, as well as creating shadows for us. If you get a little bit too much or touch something you shouldn't, you can remove it right away with a cotton swab. Soak most of that up. And here I am doing the back deck, paying attention to gray surfaces, and of course the hinges and the engine access panels. You can also apply this to the tool clamps to help define the tools. And so here I'm also applying it to all the features that are on the turret as well. Now, after this panel liner dries, I'll come back with some enamel thinner and clean up any areas that has panel liner on it that I don't want it on. Anything that looks out of place, anywhere it's too thick. So next I'm going to take XF56 metallic gray from Tamiya and apply it to our drive sprockets on the teeth where the paint would be wore away in operation of the vehicle. And I'm going to also use that on the idlers as well, where they make contact with the tracks. And here I'm painting up the idler. And here I have the idlers and the sprockets done. So next thing I'm going to do is take the panel liner and we're going to put this on all the little bolts and recessed areas on the sprockets. And any excess we have that we don't like, we're going to come back and clean that up with the enamel thinner and a small brush later. Now after you get all your panel liner on, it's a good idea to step back and look at the vehicle from multiple angles and all the parts that you used panel liner on, because you're going to want to make sure that you've cleaned everything up and it looks exactly like you want it before you seal it. Because once you seal it in with a clear coat, then it's there. So now I'm going to turn my attention to the road wheels. We're going to touch that up. There's some gray overspray on the tires. And so what I'm using is the Vallejo black that was mixed up in our very first step when we coated the entire vehicle with the airbrush. We're going to use that airbrush mixture and a small paintbrush, and we're going to dab it on just like we would do panel liner. Since the mixture is so thin, it will just flow right around the rim of the wheel, and that way it's much quicker and much easier to do this overspray touch-up. And it is so much faster than to try to paint this. And you know how acrylics are. If you've never tried it before, but if you brush over wet acrylic, it tends to pull the acrylic paint right back off. Using it in this method, it just flows right around the rim, as you can see there, and it makes it so much easier. So you can actually do all your road wheels like this, touching them up faster. I can do all the road wheels, as a matter of fact, faster than I could go back and repaint 3 of them. So it's quick and easy. Now you can also do this with enamel paints by thinning your enamel out with thinner. So now we're going to touch up and go back to our wooden handles and our jack block. So this is burnt umber oil paint, which I put on a piece of cardboard, and I let that set for, I think, 3 hours, maybe more. And what that does is it allows the cardboard to soak up the linseed oil that's in the oil paint. And what we're really after is the pigments. And I'm just going to brush this onto the handle, and I'll also do the shovel and the jack block. And then we're going to let that set for a little bit, and then come back with another brush and texture this pigment to make it resemble wood. And here in this still you can see the axe handle. It came out pretty good. I'm satisfied with that. The shovel, I just could not get it to work right for me. It doesn't look too bad, so I'm going to leave it alone. And then also the wood block. It came out pretty good, so I like that. I'm going to keep that. So next we're going to do some chipping, and our first chipping color is going to be Vallejo acrylic Panzer gray and a little bit of white. I mixed it 50-50. This will make this first chipping color lighter than the base color on the vehicle. And I'm using a sponge here, and we're going to sponge chip areas that would receive a lot of wear. So that's around the access panel and also the access doors for the final drives. And I'm going to hit up any corners. Sorry about my hand being in the way. I didn't realize it till after I had videoed everything. Now here I make a mistake, but don't worry about it. Just take yourself a cotton bud, moistened in water, and it'll just wipe right off. It's going to be much harder to clean up if you wait. So if you make a mistake while you're chipping, just fix it right then. Now the important thing is that you don't forget that after you've chipped the hull and also your turret, that you go ahead and do your road wheels and your drive sprockets and your idlers as well. So you see me doing the turret here. I'm concentrating on the corners. In wet weather, these vehicles are notorious for leaking and water running in around hatches and cracks in vents and stuff. And so the crews would take and they would drag tarps over top of them whenever they weren't in combat. And the constant dragging of tarps over top the vehicle and removing them would wear any corners, so that you're going to have more chipping in those areas. We're also going to apply chipping to any flat surfaces to give it just a little bit of interest. So around the commander's hatch would probably be chipped more than some of the other areas, and also the handles, grab handles above the loader and the gunner's hatches on the side of the turret. So after I've done my sponge chipping, I come back in with a small brush and I unify some of the chips. That way we're providing variety so that everything doesn't look the same. Now if you make a mistake, use that wet cotton bud and clean it up right away, and then you can make your adjustments. So here I'm concentrating on corners. Anywhere the crew is going to be climbing in and out of the hatches, and just try to put your chips in areas that make sense. So this access cover that you see me working on is over top of the steering differential and the transmission of the vehicle, and you can imagine the maintenance crews will probably have to get in there and work. So I'm going to go ahead and put a couple of scratches on that. So this is our second chipping color. I'm using Vallejo acrylic Panzer Gray. I've thinned it with some flow medium to keep it from drying up on us while we're using it. I want to go ahead and apologize for this aspect ratio. This is the kind of thing that happens when you use a smartphone for filming. So, anyway, the whole idea behind the second chipping color is we're going to go back in and we're going to start to fill in just some of the light chips, the light colored chips. So this method of chipping gives us an extra dimension in our chipping. Just be careful, use a really small brush and apply it to the larger chips. One word of caution is that you want to be careful not to overdo this second chipping color because it will just make the chipping effects too busy. It'll get so busy looking and out of place. So you want to use this in moderation. 1 to 2 chips out of every 10, I would say. So I'm really glad that I took these stills so that you could see the two-tone chipping. It adds another dimension to our paint job here. So I'm happy with how it's turned out so far. I hope you guys have liked it. So next I'm going to use Model Master Flat Clear Acrylic to seal in all of our chipping. And here's what we have so far. I didn't want this video to be one of those marathon videos, so we're going to have to stop here. In my next video, we'll be finishing up this project. So we're going to be doing the hold-off filter. We'll be using mud effects, dry pigments for rust, also doing the tracks. I want to take this opportunity to thank all my subscribers. I really appreciate you guys, and if you enjoyed this video, please like. If you'd like to see more, subscribe. I appreciate that too. So until then, thanks for watching.